Hello, I'm Valerie, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Valerie. I am a voiceover and on-camera actor based in Los Angeles. And if you're not new here, welcome back. I'm so happy you're here. I don't think I've ever talked about my voiceover journey on here. So many of my friends and colleagues have fallen into it in so many different ways. And I figured, because I have so many people on here who follow me who are either aspiring voice actors or beginning voice actors, or maybe you're very working voice actors and you just want to know what your other voice actor friends are up to, I thought I would do a little deep dive into how the heck I got here. I've been a working voice actor for almost 10 years, which is really, really cool. Hopefully this video gives you a little bit of inspiration, maybe it gives you a peek behind the curtain into the process, or hopefully it's at least entertaining for you. Let's dive in. I started acting when I was 5. I was so small. And when I was little, I would only watch animated stuff. Like truly, if live action actors were on, I was like, nope, I don't want it, take it away. I loved animated movies. I was a big Ghibli kid growing up. I loved Disney movies. I still love Disney movies. You can see my Disney ears right here. You can see my love of animation. I have my She-Ra poster right here. I loved animation from a very early age. I started working as an actor when I was 14. I started doing like professional equity theater around Los Angeles, and I started doing movies and TV shows and mostly independent short films. A lot of indie short films. So many. And really the only voiceover experience I had was one time I had to do narration, like pre-recorded narration for a play that I was in. So I remember I went to like the director's house or something with my parents, and I think I recorded lines in a closet on a boom mic. That was like for a long time the only voiceover I literally ever did. Then this is where stuff starts to shift and stuff starts to pop up. When I was 16 years old, I volunteered for a friend's music concert event thing to volunteer to like help out. I don't exactly remember, but I do remember that in exchange for volunteering for them, they offered me studio time to use. And I was a musical theater kid. I still do musical theater, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this studio time to make some singing demos. And I'm gonna make 2 demos and it's gonna be just great. Well, I also had this feeling that we would probably have a little extra time because I remember being really prepared with my material. So I wrote my first demo reel. It was a combination of commercials that I made up and lines from plays that I had done, because I had done a lot of different plays where I had like different accents and stuff like that, my little like southern twang and stuff like that. At the end of our session, I was like, hey, can I record these lines really quickly? And I think I did them in like 2 takes in like 10 minutes of time. It was not edited. It was like edited together in the sense that like one audio kind of faded into the next. The only processing on it was the dialogue. I had some reverb on it because it was, again, done in a music session. There was no mixing, no mastering, no sound effects, no music, no nothing. Just me, my voice, and a little echo, and scripts that I had written myself for the most part. I can still hear the reel in my head. I remember like my little British one was like, boy, why are you crying? My name is Wendy Moira Angela Darling. Because I had like done Peter Pan, or like really wanted to do Peter Pan at that point. I was a go-getter. I upload that little reel, the very homemade reel, onto Actors Access, and I start submitting with it. I'd mostly been using the site for like my on-camera and theater stuff, so I was very familiar with it. And I did start to get called in for voiceover stuff. This was pre-pandemic, so oftentimes we would like actually go to the casting director's office even for voiceover. I didn't book for a long time, but I'd get called back, or I'd get called in by the same casting directors over and over, which is always a good sign. So I knew that I wasn't bad at voiceover. I knew that I was doing something right to keep getting called in by the same people and getting good feedback and stuff like that. The first thing I actually booked was an anime dub of a show that never ended up releasing in English called Prison Paradise. I remember When I booked it, I was working as a receptionist at like a music education for kids company. And I went out to my car. I found out I'd gotten the email. I got the little C-mail through Actors Access, and I burst into tears. I think they offered me like $100 for 2 hours of work. And I remember just like, I was working at my like minimum wage job at the time. And I was just like, $100? $100 for 2 hours to act? Yes! And I was just so flabbergasted and excited and thrilled, and include all thrilled adjectives here. I thought it was like the biggest thing ever. And then I started working with this dubbing company for a while. They kept bringing me back for stuff. I did a few more internal anime dubs. I think I dubbed a couple of the Ultraman live action films. So I was doing this dubbing pretty consistently, and I was driving from the Inland Empire, which is where I was living at the time at home, all the way to Los Angeles to do these like 2-hour sessions. I will say, looking back now, the gas did eat a chunk of the money that I made, but I was just so excited. I was so excited to be working. I was so excited to be booking stuff because I'd been pounding the pavement for a while and nothing had been clicking. Like, I'd book theater, but that was kind of it. Around the same time that I was doing these dubs, there was a breakdown that popped up on Actors Access called What Remains of Edith Finch. I remember I submitted for Edith and I think for Barbara. I just submitted that really crummy reel that I made myself. And then I got called in for Edith. And I had nothing even resembling a booth. So I auditioned with my very first smartphone, a comforter that I put over me like I was in a little tent, and I did the audition on my childhood bed in my childhood bedroom where I was living at the time. I just remember that I had this feeling while I was in the middle of the audition of like, I need to take this seriously and give it my all, because I felt this like tingling in the pit of my stomach. And I am a little bit psychic sometimes, and when I get this feeling, it usually means that I'm gonna book it, but it could also mean that like there's something about this project that I'm supposed to learn or be a part of that's going to like lead me to the next step. I always listen to this feeling. It's rare when it pops up, but when it does, I'm like, oh, we gotta listen. A couple weeks later, I was at Disneyland with my girlfriend at the time, and we had gone out on a date to dinner, and I get this email telling me that I'm on a veil, and can I please let them know my conflicts for like that month or something like that. And I come from the theater and the film world. So in theater and in film, when you get in a veil, especially for like commercials or something like that, you are not the one. You are one of like 3 to 5 people who are there like, ooh, we like them. And then they'll kind of, once they confirm all those people are available, they'll make their select. And that way, if one of them, something happens and is not available, they can just go down the list and get the other people. That's not always the case for voiceover. So I remember going home that night. I was still living at home, and I get an email at like midnight telling me that I booked it, and I freaked out. And I had to be like quietly freaking out because my whole family was home and it was midnight. They were all asleep. My girlfriend was at her house asleep. I think I texted her. I think like she was probably the first person I texted. I don't think I called her because I didn't want to wake her up. I remember just like silently screaming because I was just so excited. I didn't know what the heck this thing was. I thought it was like a tiny mobile indie game, but I did know that I booked the lead, and I did know that like I loved the material because I remember the script that they gave me. I think they gave me the paragraph about seeing the house again and it frightening her. And I was like, this is some of the best writing I've read in a really long time. Oh my god, I was just so thrilled. Recording that game was really, really quick. It was my first game, so I didn't really know what to expect. I had only ever worked on projects for like a day before because I was always doing like supporting roles, tiny things. I worked on Edith Finch, I think for 4 sessions over the course of like a month and a half. They were so lovely. I had a lot of questions. Edith doesn't really know anything, and that's why she's investigating her childhood home. So I had lots of questions for them, and they were very kind, very willing to answer and talk with me about it. It was the best first experience. I'm so lucky. Now, mind you, I thought that this was a teeny tiny little indie mobile game. Like, I thought you were going to play it on your smartphone. So when the PlayStation trailer dropped, I was flabbergasted and I cried yet again because there was my voice on the PlayStation YouTube channel, like, for thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people. And that, coming from theater, that was the most I'd ever had visibility on a project I'd worked on. All of a sudden being like, oh, this isn't like a theater of 100 people. This is like 100,000 people. That was like too big for my brain to understand that many people were getting eyes on it. And then same thing when the game came out a couple months later. I remember when the first reviews came out and people gave me some incredibly kind reviews and very kind comments. And I remember showing them to my mom, and her and I just, like, not even like crying, just kind of in shock that I was on something this big and that it was mattering to people and that it was really moving people, and people really loved not only the game, but more specifically that people were resonating with my work in it. Nothing like that had ever happened before. Teenager me had good insight. I had a feeling that this was not normal. And so I was like, okay, well, if this many reviews are coming out about this thing and this many people are liking my work, I'm gonna get an agent. I'm going to specifically get someone who really does voiceover. And so I became a very squeaky wheel. I picked like 3 or 4 agencies whose work I really liked, and I would compile every review from every publication that I could find during like a 6-week period, as well as like if I auditioned for anything and I got close or got a call back, and I would include all those quotes and all that information, and I would send an update like every 6 weeks to these agents. And within like 3 or 4 months, one of them got back to me and we're like, hey, can you do these 2 auditions for us? And then we'll decide if we want to sign you. We've been loving your updates. Thank you. Mind you, I had radio silence. I didn't even get emails back saying like, confirmed received, or like, thanks for your submission. Radio silence. And then like 3 to 4 months after I had continued to send these, I got the, hey, we've been loving these. So be persistent. Then I started auditioning. I didn't book anything for a long while. I was auditioning like 5 or 6 times a month, which at the time I was like, this is so many auditions. By this time I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and I would wake up in the morning and I would try not to wake her up, and I would go crawl into our shared closet and I would record on the floor. And I'd always wake her up because I'd always inevitably have to yell because it would be for like some animated show, and I always felt bad about it. But I didn't have a booth. I didn't have a space to record. I was living with her and her whole family. I'm trying to not record in the morning anymore. This has been a persistent theme for me, even all these years later. I still wasn't working though, so I got a job at Medieval Times. I was a cast member there for like a 1.5 years. I worked as a resident princess at a hotel next to Disneyland. And then I also did like birthday party princess work. So I was doing like princess stuff kind of constantly whilst also auditioning, which means I did get to move out of working as a receptionist. I was working full-time creatively, which was very fulfilling, but I really wasn't booking any voiceover. Not really. I was doing some dubs occasionally, but like nothing to write home about. There was also kind of the stopgap of I was non-union when I did Edith Finch, and then I booked a film a few months after I worked on it, and then I joined the union that following year. And so now all of a sudden every voiceover audition that I was going for, I was going against people who were like titans in the industry who had years and years of experience, and I'm this little tiny fish who just joined the union like 6 weeks ago. Then crazy stuff started to happen with Edith Finch. Between 2017 and 2018, I got nominated for a whole bunch of performance awards. The two that I went to, the New York Video Game Critics Circle, I believe that's what it's called, their Game Awards. I met like Todd Howard of Bethesda and like a bunch of other like big video game people. I was there for 3 days. It was freezing. My girlfriend came with me. I remember losing and being bummed because I had a speech prepared. I remember meeting Melina from Senua's Sacrifice and just being like, oh, this person is so talented, and all the other nominees. But my favorite thing about that trip, besides going to the award show, was I saw Phantom of the Opera for the first time on Broadway after seeing it on tour like 11 times. My girlfriend at the time put up a fuss about seeing it. She was like, I don't want to see that. It's Phantom of the Opera. It's overdone. And we saw it, and I turned her into a Phantom of the Opera fan. I'm very proud of that fact. We're not together anymore. But this was an excellent, excellent trip. When I got home from New York a few weeks later, I opened my Twitter one morning and found out that I got nominated for the BAFTA award, which was insanity. Because also to find out from Twitter, diabolical. Diabolical. I thought it was a joke. I remember looking at my name with these just like titans of voice actors who had done these like crazy, insane, amazing performances and being like, what? I thought it was fake. I was like, there's no way. The British Academy of Film and Television has nominated who? But it was not fake. It was real. And so all of a sudden I'm like panic planning to go to London. My ex-girlfriend lets me borrow her prom dress. I buy an outfit to go to the luncheon. I wrangle my dad to go with me because I don't want to go to London alone, and he grew up going to England because we have family over there, and we make this trip happen. But let's rewind a moment. Around the time that I find out I get nominated for the BAFTA, I get called in to audition for this top secret AAA game. I go in, I have a really good time. I learn this little Texan accent for it. I remember really vibing with the director, who was also a BAFTA nominee that year. It was Tom Keegan. I find out as I am getting on the plane to fly to London that I booked Wolfenstein YOUNGBLOOD, and that the following month, or like 6 weeks after I'd get home, I would be flying to Sweden to do the motion capture and performance capture for 3 whole weeks in Sweden. I remember panicking as I got on the phone because I had also booked a equity musical that I'd been really wanting to do that was at the same time, and I remember that the show was opening like a week after I would get home from Sweden, and I was frantically emailing the director. Luckily, I had done the part before with this director, and so we made it work in that I went to 2 rehearsals before I went to Sweden, and then I went to tech when I got home. It was crazy. And I remember like not even knowing that it was Wolfenstein. I was like, what is this thing? What are we in? What is this? And then Tom got us all together for lunch. And he was like, yeah, so Wolfenstein. And I was like, oh. For those of you who don't know, Wolfenstein is like a legacy game. I believe the first one, I believe it's considered the first-person shooter, and it's from the 80s. So it's like, it has a history. And also, the cast from the main series is stacked. I was in a room of titans. Also, I have to circle back to the BAFTAs. I remember being at the BAFTAs and not winning for Best Performance, which I wasn't surprised by because, I mean, if you look at who I was nominated against that year, the performances that year were insane. I am honored to be among them. But I did have my little speech in my pocket just in case, because I was like, what if I forget someone? What if I forget someone? But then we won Best Game. As I was prepping for this video, I had to look up if I went on stage when we accepted the Game of the Year. I did go on stage. I don't remember it. I'm pretty sure I blacked out because I did go on stage. I fully went on stage with the whole team that was there. I do remember very distinctly from the BAFTAs, they had these little chocolates in the shape of the BAFTA masks that they called Tiddly BAFTAs. They had a milk chocolate, a white chocolate, and a dark chocolate, and it was some of the best chocolate I've ever had. I think about those often. I actually kept the box as a souvenir. I remember doing so many interviews and press and just being in this whirlwind of all of this, and just people coming up to me and telling me how much they like my work and just being so like, thank you. This award show and award season was probably the first big voiceover lesson that I learned, in that networking and doing your research is really, really important, because I was just feeling so lucky to be there and so awkward and so nervous, and I didn't have a person that went with me to the BAFTAs. I was just so awkward and thanking people, and really I wish that I had done more research on all the other games that were nominated, because I'm very familiar with them now, but I wish I would have done more research so that I could have engaged with the creatives that I had this privilege to be in the room with these titans. And I genuinely forgive baby Valerie. I was in so over my head and I had no idea what I was doing. But now, when I'm presented with an opportunity to go be in a room full of fabulous people, I try to do my research so that I can have thoughtful and engaged conversations about our shared art and our shared love for the medium. That was a huge thing I learned. Don't waste these networking opportunities. You don't know when they're going to happen again, so you want to use them when they present themselves to you. And also, with that, it's building actual genuine relationships. Networking can feel really icky, but if you look at it as like, I'm building creative connections with people whose work I admire and who I want to work with and build creative lives with, that to me is way more fulfilling. Then I came home and I flew to Sweden and I got to do motion capture and performance capture for the first time, which I loved. I love doing motion capture. It's like the perfect bridge of theater and voice acting. Oh my gosh, I love it. I became dear friends with my friend Shelby while we were there, and I got to work with Tom Keegan, who has become a lifelong friend, whose work I also just admire so much. And oh my gosh, I got to work with like Brian Bloom and Deborah Wilson, and just like the whole team was amazing to work with. I had so much fun. I also flew business class for the first time. They say that it's harder to downgrade once you've done something fancy. I can confirm that. Every time I fly economy, I think about flying in business class. And I think about flying international in business class. I got served like 3 meals, and they were hot and they were good. In Sweden, I also found this really good vegetarian meat substitute called halloumi. I think that's how you say it. I think it's like a pressed cheese. It's like on burgers and stuff like that. It was amazing. I love Sweden. Sweden, I will come visit you anytime. I miss you so much. Then I came home, did that play. I think we ran for like 4 or 5 weeks. And I was now living in Orange County, like I said, with my girlfriend at the time. And I came home and I was like, this is it. This is how voice acting is. Go to the BAFTAs every year, book motion capture all the time, constantly be working. I did not work for a year. Can you hear me? Is this thing hello? A year. I did not work for a year after that. And actually, the next thing I booked wasn't even a voiceover job. It was a dinner theater production of Peter Pan, which I had the best time doing, but it wasn't voiceover. I got really sad during this time. I also had quit my job at Medieval Times while I was in Sweden, because I was like, I don't need that. I'm working. I'm booked and busy, babe. I was not, in fact, booked and busy, babe. So I lived off of my money that I made from Wolfenstein. I had also bought a new car with that money. So I was working at the hotel as a princess, and I was doing like brand ambassador stuff. So I would go to like conventions and stuff like that, or like I'd do like the food sampling at like grocery stores and stuff like that. Truly any brand ambassador work that would have me. I did a lot of like photo booth stuff. I did a lot of that. I think the biggest thing that I learned during this time was how important it is to have multiple creative outlets and multiple financial streams if being a creative or being a voice actor is what you want to do. Because I put myself through a lot of stress, and I also couldn't like afford class at this time. I was kind of stuck. I was like, oh, well, I booked these big things, so I should be getting more things, but I can't afford class to go grow and get better. I just kind of got myself like stuck in this position that made me feel really sad and stuck for during this period. The other big thing that I came to terms with is that awards are not everything. In seeing the awards die down from my year of being nominated for everything, I felt this sense of like, oh no, no one's talking about my work anymore. And I realized that's kind of what it is for most jobs we work on. You know, we have our cheerleaders, we have the people who are excited for us, but like not every job we get is going to be the job that gets us nominated for the BAFTA. And if that's our benchmark, we will never be happy with any project that we book because it's not going to give us, we can't make it give us those external validations. And even if you get nominated, that doesn't mean you're going to win. And so I think that I've had to learn that it's important to find fulfillment in every part of the process so that you're not waiting for like something that may or may not come. During my year of not booking, my dear friend Tom Keegan reached out and he asked me if he could refer me to one of his favorite agencies, which was Vox Inc. So I signed with Vox in like, I think early 2019-ish, and I immediately fell in love with the team. I have loved being there. I'm still there at the time of this video. I hope to be there for a long, long time. And I immediately started auditioning like crazy. And I started booking. Wolfenstein came out that summer of 2019 while I was doing Peter Pan. I got my dog that summer and I started working. I started doing some dub stuff, some small supporting roles in games. Then 2020 rolls around. Everything closes. Right before the pandemic is when I booked Tower of God. And so we had a combination of going in studio for that one and recording from home. Again, I didn't have a booth at this point. I had a Blue Yeti microphone that my girlfriend had gotten me for Christmas the year before. That was it. I thought I was gonna get fired because I couldn't figure out how to set it up right. I did figure it out. I found out with the engineer's help that the microphone was turned backwards. Always check if your microphone's turned backwards, folks. And then I was lucky in that when the pandemic hit, I was still booking stuff remote. I was doing some audiobooks, I was doing dubs from home, I booked Class of '09 during the pandemic, and then my girlfriend and I broke up, in late 2020. We broke up around September, which means in October, I moved to Los Angeles by myself with my dog, and I moved into my first apartment. And that is where I built my first booth. I was able to convert the walk-in closet into a full booth. It also had my clothes in it because storage is important. It was not a mansion by any means. But I had my first space where I got to have just for voiceover, which was really cool. And I got to decorate it and put my little characters in there and put in some art. It was really special building it. Whilst I'm dealing with this like terrible breakup, it was a brutal breakup. I've written a lot of music about it. During this very brutal breakup, I get an audition for this character named Tara Wilde, who I'm like, this girl's weirdly similar to me. First off, I'd gotten the character art and she was this cute little brunette. She just recently has gone through a really bad breakup and moved to a new town. She also has a grandma named Grandma Hazel. That is my grandmother's name. She's also a witch, and I'm someone who dabbles in the magical occult spaces. I read tarot and love all things witchy. And again, that little tingle in the pit of my stomach bubbled up, and I knew that this one was very, very special. I didn't hear anything for a couple months, and then in February, I get a callback. I do a live Zoom callback with the director, Kutsia, and I find out that night that I booked it. I screamed through my apartment. Two of my friends were living with me at the time, and I remember just screaming and being so excited and just being like, I booked this thing. I worked on WYLDE FLOWERS for over 2 years. I did over 40 sessions on that game. And that is, I think, around the time that I really started to feel like a really working voice actor. Because I was in the studio pretty often. Sometimes 3 or 4 times a month. And I fell in love with that character. I loved playing Tara so much. I had my eye on getting into audiobooks around this time. I had done a few indie audiobooks before, but nothing crazy. And I stumbled upon the Penguin Random House audiobook mentorship program. Say that 10 times fast. I submitted. It was their second year. This was, I believe, early 2022. And through a several-month audition process, I had to submit a full application and demos, and then I had like a live session with the two wonderful women who run the program, I found out I got it, which was really surprising because I thought I screwed up my audition because I couldn't pronounce the word colonel. Because the word, we had to read like a nonfiction piece and they provided the sample and the word colonel kept popping up in it, but it's got an L in it, like an L in the middle of it. And I kept reading it as colonel and I got stopped in my thing and they were like, it's colonel. And I went, oh, and after that I was like, they can't take me. I mispronounced the word. Nope, I'm not getting it. I did get in. That was a 6-month program, and my mentor, Nick, I adore you. Nick gave me my first audiobook job during my first mentorship program. He needed someone to voice like a kid or a teen, and he was like, you have voiceover experience. Here, you do this. I started working from there. I've now done about 50 audiobooks. A lot of those are from Penguin Random House. A couple are for other places. But that program absolutely changed my life. And since then, I've just been continuing to work and broadening my horizons. I've gotten a lot more into dubbing, both anime and live action. I've also been booking a lot more animated projects, which has just made little 5-year-old Valerie and current Valerie just so happy. I've been doing lots of audiobooks. I still work on lots of games. I go where the work takes me. I'm really lucky that I have a lot of repeat clients, so whilst I have lots of auditions, thanks to my amazing agents and my manager, I also get asked just straight up to do stuff, which to me is always such an honor to have someone think of me for something and just be like, hey, I want you for this. That's such a thrill to know that like I was on their mind. It just, I don't know, makes me really happy. Going through the pandemic as an actor and a voice actor, that taught me that being able to diversify is so important if you want to survive. The reason that I've been able to make a living at this is that I do on camera still, and I still do theater, but I do video games and animation and audiobooks and commercials and anything that I can find. And that way, if something dries up or like, you know, strikes happen, like I think about the first strike for on camera, you know, I'm so grateful that I had voiceover to do because a lot of us were out of work. And the same thing during the video game strike. Video games are such a big part of my livelihood, and then being able to go, okay, well, to survive, I'm gonna really put my time and energy into audiobooks, which is also something that I love deeply. So it's kind of being able to like move with where everything is going. I also teach children voice acting, but I'm really lucky to say that most of my income, most of the thing that pays my rent, pays my bills, is now from acting, both on camera, on stage, and primarily from voiceover. That brings us to 2026. What am I doing right now? I'm focusing on growing. I spent a lot of last year growing my voice in voice lessons and in my songwriting. This year for me is the focus on acting. I want to be a better actor. I want to book more motion capture. I want to be better at accents. I want to be better not only on camera and on stage, but in the booth. I want to be the best that I can be. That's always been my goal, and it's become a more tangible goal for me the last couple years. At the end of the day, I know that I got really lucky with some really big right place, right time, right prep opportunities that just came to me. And I know I worked hard for them in that, like I said, I've been acting since I was 5, but I also get a lot of really cool auditions and opportunities, and I want to keep meeting them at my best, and I want to keep exceeding that because the opportunities that I get aren't lost on me. I know that not everybody gets these. So I want to be, in the words of Ash Ketchum, the very best that no one ever was. To catch them, the jobs, is my real test. To train them is my cause. I can't do this. I really want to book Pokemon. I was such a Pokemon kid. I really just know that I've been afforded these really amazing opportunities. I want to knock them out of the park. I don't know how long this will last, and I want it to last for my whole career. But in order to do that, I want to keep growing. I really love acting. I really love voiceover, and I want to do it for my whole life. And I also don't want to get stagnant. I really want to just keep growing and learning and being better. And that is my voiceover journey up until now. Yay! My next project that's coming out that I can talk about is Project Songbird, which just got announced today. It's coming out in March of this year, so it's coming out so soon. Keep an eye out on this page, on my other socials, for more exciting announcements. I can't wait to tell you all the things. I'm good at keeping secrets, but I hate keeping secrets. I just want to talk about the things. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like this video, please hit that like button and make sure to subscribe to see all my future videos. And I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful, magical day. Mwah.